unbearable effects of the Ukrainian war are taking a toll on both Ukraine and Russia. While Ukraine suffers from civilian casualties and economic consequences, Russia is facing exhaustion on military, economic, and political fronts. Throughout the course of the war, the Ukrainian army and partisans have conducted numerous sabotage attacks targeting Russia's revenue-generating facilities and businesses. The primary objective behind these attacks is to exacerbate the economic hardships Russia is already facing. In recent months, the frequency of these sabotage activities has significantly increased. With the explosion of Russia's ammonia pipeline being the latest blow, Russia has accused Ukraine of being responsible for the explosion at a crucial ammonia pipeline, warning of potential negative implications on the renewal of a vital grain export deal. Moscow has attributed the pipeline's damage to Ukrainian partisan groups, while making it clear that the grain export agreement from the previous year will not be renewed unless the pipeline is operational. However, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky refuted these allegations from the Kremlin, suggesting that the explosion was likely caused by Russian bombing. Prior to the outbreak of the Ukraine war in February 2022, the 2,500-kilometer pipeline transported 2.5 million tons of ammonia annually from the Russian city of Taglatia to 3 Black Sea ports in southern and western Ukraine. Since the war's onset, activities on the pipeline came to a halt after Russia's attack on Ukraine. Last year, negotiations between Kiev and Moscow led to an agreement that allowed the safe passage of ammonia, a key fertilizer ingredient, through the pipeline. Facilitated by the UN and Turkey, this landmark agreement was initially adopted for 120 days in June 2022 and subsequently extended 3 times. The latest extension is set to expire on July 17th. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin's press secretary, stated that the blast could have a detrimental impact on the negotiations to renew the grain export deal. He emphasized that the pipeline issue is an integral part of the agreement, and the sabotage only complicates the extension of the deal. The extent of the damage to the pipeline and Ukraine's future actions remain uncertain, according to Peskov. Ukraine vehemently denies any involvement in the attack, instead accusing Moscow of orchestrating it. President Zelensky highlighted that the attack occurred in the gray zone between the territories controlled by Ukraine and Russia. He drew a distinction between this incident and the collapse of the Kakhovka Dam, emphasizing that the consequences of the war hold Russia accountable, while perceiving the dam's collapse as a separate act of sabotage conducted by Russia itself. The immediate consequences of the Kakhovka Dam collapse were devastating, with flooded homes and displaced civilians. Ukrainian officials now warn of severe long-term implications for agriculture in one of the country's most fertile regions. The Ministry of Agriculture predicts that fields in southern Ukraine could turn into deserts as early as next year due to the cessation of vital irrigation systems connected to the Vasquez region. This region, known for its rich farmland on both sides of the Dnipro River, cultivates a variety of crops ranging from onions, tomatoes, and sunflowers to soybeans, wheat, and watermelons. Additionally, dairy farms in the area have been significantly affected by the submersion caused by the dam's collapse. The flooding in Russian-controlled areas, including Crimea, is notably worse than in the Ukrainian-controlled regions on the north bank of the Dnipro. The long-term consequences may lead to the complete depletion of water resources in the arid peninsula of Crimea, which heavily relies on the Dnipro River. The collapse of the Kakhovka Dam will likely take a few weeks to revert the reservoir back into a river, and the cost of relying on several years of rainfall without adequate irrigation is difficult to estimate. However, experts suggest that repairing or rebuilding the dam entirely could take years and cost between $1 to $1.5 billion. This loss of investment, combined with the current losses, could amount to approximately $7 billion for the region over 5 years. The man-made disaster doesn't only affect agriculture. The Ministry of Agriculture of Ukraine has reported that drinking water resources in residential areas, along with farmers and water users, will also be severely impacted. Ukrainian authorities are now searching for ways to deliver drinking water to towns and villages facing water shortages. Additionally, The contamination caused by tons of motor oil and other chemicals released into the water during the dam's collapse raises concerns about diseases and epidemics among the population exposed to polluted waters. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky referred to the dam's collapse as an environmental mass destruction bomb, and the country's Attorney General's office is investigating the incident as a potential ecological massacre. It is evident that Ukraine, already struggling with a war economy, will bear the brunt of such a loss. While Russia has implicated Ukraine in the dam's collapse, it is widely acknowledged that Russia is responsible. These incidents underscore that the war between the two countries encompasses not only military engagement, but also economic warfare and consequential damage.